Well, good morning and welcome to the first, we call it lecture video of ILA. We're using this as a new system for us also in ILA. We cover these usually in the face-to-face workshop meetings, but we're gonna try a little flip version of this time. And we'll have several short videos, it'll probably be 10, 15, 20 minutes, that cover everything we used to cover in the face-to-face session. What that'll do is free up time in that face-to-face session for discussion and collaboration. It'll also allow us to cut the time from a usual 9 to 3 o'clock from an 8:30 to 12:30 session. So as we go through ILA, we have a couple of questions. Is number one, how can we reach that next level of performance? That's our question. Because the ILA, usually when we talk about professional development, faculty can say, well, I don't need this myself, or I don't need professional development. I'm doing fine in my classes. We hear all these comments. But what we have to make sure we understand is professional development is not always about us. Professional development is for the college, is for the system, is for the whole state of Alabama. So when I come to something like this, my first question is, what can I get out of it? And my second question is, what do I have to offer? So if we think we've cornered the market on teaching and have no further room for improvement, then we absolutely need you in here, because we need you to provide that collaboration, some insights that may help some others. But still, the key question, how can I reach that next level of performance? And one thing that'll impede that is the statement, oh, I'm already doing that. So when you hear something brought up in ILA and the instinctive thought is, well, I'm already doing that, take it to the next level, because that statement is more of a fixed mindset. It's saying that I don't need to grow, I don't need to learn anymore, I'm already doing that. So in your mind, convert that to a growth mindset response, which is, well, I may already be doing this, but how can I take this information and do what I'm doing even more effectively? How can I improve upon that, so to speak? And then, of course, what we've already said, how can I help someone else reach that next level if I already have? Because there is always a next level. So as we go through this, our focus on instruction and leadership, we got to remind ourselves that if we're talking instruction, if we're talking education and learning, then we'll have several memes throughout this presentation. So that gives you the chance to pause if you wanted to make a note of one or reread it or say, well, this might be a good one for me to use in my class. Memes were one of those topics from last year's group. They said with such a small thing, they never realized how it could make such a big difference. Now, how we use those, of course, is important. This is another meme that helps clarify some things about education. Sometimes today when we think, well, if I got my feelings hurt, I must be a victim. And if I'm a victim, there must be a victimizer, and that would be the one that hurt my feelings. So now it becomes about getting my feelings corrected, not about learning, not about the teaching moment. So when we get that uncomfortable feeling, and I say we, keep in mind, we're talking about ourselves as well as our students. It holds for both. Everything we present in ILA is going to be, how can I use this for myself, and how can I use it in my class for my students? So sometimes we should welcome this little bit of discomfort. Like it said, we find comfort in those that agree with us, but we find growth in those that don't. And it's another reminder to Q-tip it. Anytime we start taking things personal and things that's personally directed at us, it becomes more about getting our feelings corrected than it does about the teaching and learning moment. So if we're a teacher and a student makes some comment that we may take personally, what we have to remind ourselves is we must respond as a teaching and learning moment, because every misconception is an opportunity for that. So Q-tip, we'll mention Q-tip throughout the entire ILA because it is so important. We mentioned faculty. Faculty immediately think they're talking about them personally. Faculty is a plural term that represents, in our state anyway, over 2,000 full-time faculty, not even to mention the part-time faculty. So when we refer to faculty, that's a group, just like when we refer to students, that's as a group. Of course, what we say doesn't hold for every single person in that group. But what we also have to understand is we won't change education by ourselves. Education in the state of Alabama won't change because of what one teacher is doing. It will change because of what we are doing collectively. So that's why it's so important not to take it personal. When we say faculty, if we're already doing whatever it is we're addressing, then how can I do it better? And how can I help others do this also so that we can change the education system? So the questions we have to answer, very short. We just need to know, number one, do we want to improve? So when we ask you, do you want to improve your effectiveness? And of course, when you're in the teaching field, improving effectiveness means empowering more folks to success. in our case, our students. If we're dealing with faculty, well, it would be faculty, but we're talking classroom, it would be our students. Number one question, do we want to improve? Because, we quite frankly, I've heard faculty say this. You can come up with whatever you want in the state. I have no intention of changing anything I do. And that's another way of just saying I have no intentions of improving. So you have to wonder, have they already cornered the market on teaching? Or they just have no further room for improvement? Or do they have a quota? In other words, whatever their success rates are, whatever their WDF rates are, that quote unquote, they're good. So therefore, I'm passing enough students. And I say that as students see it, not as we see it. How we see it is they earn that grade. So we'll talk more about this throughout ILA, but that's the question we want you to ask. Do you want to improve? And here's the key question. Because if you want to improve, the next question is going to be, are you willing to feel the discomfort of putting in more effort? Because that's what's going to happen. Anytime we try something new, there's going to be some discomfort there. Are we willing to work through the discomforts? It may be something as simple as using Screencast-O-Matic. Well, there's all kind of little different things we can learn as we go along, much like a computer program. We don't learn it all the first day. So we have to work through that discomfort, and it's the same for our students. So as we said, anything we say in ILA, you first say, how can I use this to improve myself? But also, I'm always thinking, how can I use this for students? Would this be a good meme for students? Would this be a good message for students? Here's another meme that talks about teaching and remembering why we're here. Because we're not in the business of making trinkets to sell on the shelf at Walmart. We're in the business of changing people's lives. And the kind of lives that we're having to change sometimes are those that have no other option except the community college system. And when their lives is changed through education, through higher education, it impacts their children, their future children, their grandchildren. We're talking about a cultural change in an entire family can happen through this. So when Governor Ivey said, well, we want to add 500,000 highly skilled Alabamans to the workforce by the year 2025, well, the first thing you have to think is, where are these people going to come from? Because when we look at the education system, you go to the last sentence on this in this article, the talent we must get, it has to come from exactly those parts of society that has been traditionally underserved. So then when you show that 99% of the post-Great Recession jobs went to those with post-secondary credentials, you can see why they say the most important thing one can do in today's world to increase opportunities in life for themselves, their children, their future children, their grandchildren, is the pursuit of higher education. That's how important what we do is. Laser focused on what the student experience. So everything we talk about will be through the student's eyes. What did the students learn? What did the students perceive? Not what we did, what we said, or what we covered. What did the students experience? And one thing about leadership, and this is a good little meme, looks like a little note card somebody took a picture of, but if serving's below you, leadership is beyond you, and that's what we do. Anybody in position of leadership knows that their number one priority is to build more leaders, to build more leadership mentality in folks. It's a little longer meme by Stacy Maxwell, but this one you can read to yourself. You can pause the video, take a little longer going over this. That's one of the things about a flipped classroom in terms of our faculty development. This is what we presented face-to-face, and a lot of times in face-to-face, it's the first time faculty have heard some of this stuff. Not the ones who've been to conferences or have read up on a lot of issues of higher education, but for most faculty, it may be the first time we've heard this. And so there tends to be some kind of emotional reaction that we have to sometimes curtail a little bit to get the learning moment out of it. But what can happen in a flip version of this is you can have those discomforts at home. You can work through and think about them. A lot of times in the face-to-face, faculty would respond instinctively to something that came up, later realizing that probably wasn't the best thing to say, but they really haven't thought about it. It's kind of like with students. When you ask students what they feel, then if we were being graded anyway, we couldn't give a wrong answer on it, if it's how they feel. Now, if you ask students what they think, that's a different story. What I feel is an emotional reaction. What I think is a logical action. So I must stop and think about it. Maybe I've never thought about it. Maybe you ask me a question. I say, well, you say, what do you think about so-and-so? I might say, well, I don't know. Let me think about that a minute because I've never thought about it. And you ask me what I thought. So we'll cover a lot of these differences as we go through Instructional Leadership Academy, but focusing on the word leadership for a minute, Coach Saban says it pretty well. You're never going to please everybody. If you're in a position of leadership, there'll always be somebody that disagrees with you. And you can imagine in the state of our country now, probably half the people are going to disagree with you, and the other half will love you. So the meme that says the strength of the wolf is the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf, we look at that and we wonder, how does that apply to ILA and teaching? And we've really kind of already covered that. In terms of ILA, the strength of me as an individual will be the entire group. The entire group is where I'm going to draw my inspiration from, get the collaboration, the positive encouragement from. But also the strength of the entire ILA cohort is in each individual. So, and this may be something a little different. I don't know what you've been used to at your institutions, but we can make it clear when we say leaders, we're not talking about those in a position of leadership. Those are included also. We're talking about the verb leadership. What do we do to exemplify leadership mentality or leadership action? So this is one meme that may help in that. And one thing leaders do is they turn differences into commonalities. They also turn negatives into positives. They turn crisis into opportunity. And we'll talk several other things as we go through what leaders do. This is a good meme for that. No, we won't get it done by ourselves. We can't change the education system by ourselves. We can change it working together. And then on Stringcast-O-Matic, we're going to try a little video here.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking. Outside the box thinking.
Hey, buddy.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, mesh!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard. That ain't new, baby.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice.
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
Yeah, baby.
He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug.
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
You want to play games, Gene? Well, when it's game time, it's pay time, baby. Woo!
Okay, you may be wondering, well, where does that video fit into what we do? Well, you know, it's a good example of, for this company anyway, I don't know, it's say they did call in Terry Tate. Well, the one question will be, did it help you improve? That's the only question. You may not agree with the tactics, you may not agree with how they went about it, may not agree with what was said, but in terms of results, did it get the results? And if it did, well, then wonderful. Probably wouldn't be the system I would use or you would use, but hey, if it worked for you, great. Because leadership is not that screaming voice of you must do what you're supposed to do. It's sometimes that calm voice. And especially in the midst of confusion and chaos, kind of like what we're exhibiting right now with our current crisis. You know, the cream rises to the top in a crisis. But sometimes it's just that calm voice in the midst, those little small gestures. So things that can be easily replicated. And in the case here, has a profound effect on the human spirit. It has a profound effect on my sense of hope. This is down around the Panama City area. They put a lot of these little pallets out and somebody painted them, spread the love. Now you'll notice the truck right behind it has been hauling away trash from Hurricane Michael. We noticed one of those, they had painted across the top of it the word hope. They're reminding people they have hope. And these little things make a big difference. So when we talk about leadership, best way to lead is by example. What are you doing to improve the hope? Hope for your students, hope for your faculty. We had a crisis. There was a lot of conversion to online. Okay, how many folks created maybe a Zoom session, since folks had to be home, created a Zoom session where you could show up maybe once or twice a week and just share new ideas, share some of your challenges you've gone through and how you've overcome those challenges. How powerful could that be? The problem in most institutions around the country that we've not reached that level of leadership among the faculty ranks. So instead of thinking, what can I do about it? Not waiting for somebody else, not waiting for what my dean, my president, the chancellor is going to do. What am I doing about it? It's my school, it's my problem, my students. What am I doing? Why don't I call a meeting? And those that can show up, that want to show up, but there may be some faculty that need to hear encouragement. They need to hear some new ideas. And we could do that, you know, with a weekly Zoom session. Okay, so keep that in mind. That'll be a question we constantly ask through this program every time an issue comes up. Well, what are you doing about it? And that's going to take some courage to do that. You know, a lot of people confuse courage is not the absence of fear. The fear of the unknown, it'll always be there. We can develop a little more confidence, but that will always be there. Courage is simply we have a mission that's more important than the fear. We have a mission that's more important than our feelings. Matter of fact, we have a mission that's more important than all our feelings put together. So when we're trying to build this confidence in students or faculty, when we say students, you think faculty or vice versa. When we're trying to build this confidence, the key is repeated uses of self-discipline. Now, some folks have had that in their upbringing. Some of our students have had it in their upbringing. Some have had none of this in their upbringing. But repeated uses of that self-discipline will what allow them to build the confidence. And then the courage will be putting that confidence into action. And catch that last part, despite all naysayers. See, they said the difference in leadership and following is simply innovation. The leaders have to have a vision that look further ahead than just today. They have to anticipate and have a vision for moving forward and moving people forward. Followers, I can just wait till you do it. Once you do it and you figured it out, then I'll follow along and try it also. Or when I'm forced to have to do it. Our current epidemic has been a forcing function to get many faculty to start using a learning management system for what it was designed for, which is managed learning, not to store a syllabus or as a grade book, but to actually manage learning. So that's been one of the positive outcomes from that. But the point to this last part, there will always be those naysayers. Anytime you're moving forward, anytime you're having a vision for the future, you'll always have those naysayers. So the question is, how important is it to you? If we'd had a group activity with this, a good group activity for the first day, because on the first day of class, of this program, anywhere, the first day should be about connecting. How can we connect? Because if we can't connect, how in the world are we going to collaborate? We have to get the collaboration phase. That's where communication and critical thinking go on. Our two most important core competencies, by the way, in the state. So of all the differences we have in the state, the commonality that's been created is, number one, we all teach students. Number two, we all teach students communication and critical thinking. Everything else follows after that. So the first day, we want students to connect with each other, connect with us as a teacher, connect with the institution. So if we were meeting face to face, you'd write down 2 questions each that you'd want to ask your classmates, your colleagues to find more about it. You would write down your 2 questions. And then the teacher or the facilitator would give you a number. Those numbers would be the ones depicted on a beach ball. That beach ball would have numbers 1 through 12 on the different slices of that beach ball. So when we throw the beach ball up, wherever your right thumb lands, let's say my right thumb landed on 2. Well, whoever had the number 2 would ask me their first question. And they'd find out something else about me. Then they'd throw the beach ball up, the next person would grab it, and this would continue on. And so when a classmate indicates the number on the beach ball activity, they ask their first question. If it comes around to them again and their number comes up again, they'll ask the second question on their list. And depending on how many's in the group, there may be more than one person that has that number. Just to connect activity, you have many of them, you try the first day. But the first day of class, absolutely the most important day of the entire semester. Bar none, is the most important. And it becomes more crucial that we connect on that first day. If we don't do anything else, at least we've connected, now we're ready to move on. Of course, after the first day, the absolutely most important day becomes the second day. So we can just keep on going down the list. Just to throw an example out, and we're going to move through this quick. Look to your left, look to your right. Well, what if this ILA course was going to be a midterm and a final only? There will be a lot of other work required, just won't be part of your grade. A lot of skills required that you may not have been tested on, or you may not even have formally been trained in, but they're still responsible for. And matter of fact, at the end of the semester, we're just going to bell curve this thing out. That way we're sure there's no grade inflation or deflation. You know, this is a system many of you may have gone through in college. You know, they bell curved it out. So when you bell curve, there's a percentage that will not pass. A bell curve is a way of saying, I don't know how to set the standards, so I'm just going to throw it out there and then just bell curve it in the end. But what it ensures is there will be a percentage of people that will not pass. And if you don't pass, then you have to retake the course at your own expense. Any assignments cannot be submitted after a deadline, won't be accepted. Submitted work will be graded and recorded. There just won't be an option to redo it or correct your mistakes. You know, most important part of learning occurs when we make mistakes and correct them. Unfortunately, the way the educational system is set up, that doesn't always occur. We cover material, we memorize it, we take a test, and then we move on to more material. We never get around to correcting our mistakes and learning from those mistakes sometimes. And there'll be a large amount of technical knowledge that we have to memorize. They'll be crucial to your success on the test, even if you don't see how relevant they are to you. So if we explained ILA with this slide, we'd have several questions in our mind. Would that elicit a logical or emotional response? Well, the more it touched on our feelings, the more emotional it would be. Did it question your decision to participate in ILA? And how did it make you feel when we were reminded that some of you are not going to make it through this course? And then how did it make you feel knowing your colleagues know you're not going to make it through the course? Would it be a feeling of embarrassment? Would there be stress knowing that you have to retake it because of the money, because of the time? And did that stress increase or decrease your motivation? See, this totally depends on what kind of environment that you come from. Do you come from an environment with support and encouragement and prior training needed? Then you may be able to work through it. Unfortunately, that doesn't represent the majority of our students. And did it make you question whether you'd be able to handle all these assignments? Because we got a lot of stuff going on in our life other than this. Our students have a lot of things going on in their life. So did it make you question whether you could handle it and meet those obligations? Now, do you think that having the ability to correct mistakes would lead to a greater degree of learning? Well, of course, the answer is yes. So now the new question would be, do we provide time for that? So when we're talking about these things, it's not that we say these things to students. I'll go back to the slide. It's not that we say these things to students. Yeah, we probably all heard in some class in college, look to your left, look to your right. One of you won't be here, or two of you won't be here. They were trying to create that motivation. But keep in mind, back in the day, those that went to college were the ones that could afford to go to college, the ones that were prepared to go to college, the ones that had the support to go to college. And that changed as time went on to where we had to get more people involved in higher education to the benefits. Unfortunately, the system we had in place alienated an entire group of folks from the benefits of higher education, both economically and socially. So to reach a level of equity that we need, we have to address these issues. And we have to keep in mind, we don't perceive things the same. When we do course evals, we're looking for student perceptions. That may be reality, it may not be reality, but it's the reality of their perception. So the question is, can we understand through their point of view? That's very difficult to do, by the way. If I'm not from a culture that our students are from, it's very difficult for me to see it through their eyes. This picture is a good example of that. So as we go through some more memes, once again, memes that could be used for faculty, it could be used for students, could be used in your class. If you ask yourself why you want to teach, then ask this follow-up question. And I say teach, leading and teaching is the same. They're one and the same. Why would people want you to lead them? Because that answer should be the answer to why we want to teach. We want to improve people's lives. That's why we got into teaching. Probably didn't get in for the money, but we got in to help people improve their lives, solve problems in their lives, help create an organization where people want to work. Now, that's what you have to ask yourself about your particular department or division. Is it a division or department where people want to work? And then the next question, well, what are you doing about it? And this is a really important one. It's an important one because we don't like to get blindsided by things. When we're blindsided by something, we tend to react instead of act. We tend to be more of an emotional reaction instead of a logical action. So understanding up front, if we're dealing with people, which is what all parents, coaches, teachers, leaders do, it will always be something. So if faculty say that's one of their number one frustrations is it's always something. Well, let's relieve that stress. It'll always be something when you're dealing with people. And that's why adapting and improvising is the name of the game. Or if we're speaking in SACS terms, constant improvement based on data. But adapt and improvise. That's just another way of saying constant improvement. And once again, it says based on data, not on how we feel. Doesn't matter what we feel about the situation. What does the data show? What do the results show? Memes can be very powerful for students. They can get them hanging on when they feel like they need to quit. And that says it all for ILA right there. That is exactly the environment we want to create. We want to create it for you personally. We want to create it for your division, your department, entire institution, and the entire system. Makes sense, doesn't it? So we give a basic strategy. We're not giving especially when we get to the 5 highest impact strategies, we're not talking about strategies at somebody's personal preference. We're talking about strategies that are proven to increase student success, guaranteed to, because they support how the brain naturally learns. So if I go in and I say, well, this particular strategy didn't work for me, well, then what am I doing about it? What am I tweaking? What am I changing? Because we know the strategy works, but how it was presented, maybe it could work better presented in another way. That's what constant improvement is all about. And to wind us up, you could take this time to write 4 words. If you had to give somebody advice on teaching, new teachers coming in, and I had to give you 4 words, what would those words be? We get to our face-to-face session in July, or maybe in our Zoom session in June, we can discuss more of these things. Okay. That's it for our first little video. We'll have a couple of more for intro, and then we'll also have our intentional teaching.